Voices drift on winds untamed, words like spells that can't be named. Close your eyes and feel the sound. Journey where no bounds are found. Open doors inside your mind. Leave the ordinary far behind. Colors swirl and stars align. In the meta mysteries you'll find.
Welcome to Meta Mysteries, where you don't know what you don't know. My name's Jonathan.
I'm Sean.
And tonight is Wonder Wednesday live show for the Meta Mystery crew out there. We call them The One. Welcome in everybody who is joining so far. Very nice to be able to see y'all. Adam, I don't even know if I told you that this was going to be the live show, but
no, you didn't.
Oh, you son of a bitch, dude.
Sorry, I just realized
that's messed up.
No, I have zero problems with that.
He's like, I gotta go.
No, if anything, that makes it more interesting and hopefully more helpful.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we love doing the live shows. It's just more perspectives and more people can chime in and stuff like that. And so yeah, it'll be pretty cool. And by the way, anybody that wants to be able to chime in, maybe you have a question for Adam or anything like that, just feel free to put it in the chat. But yeah, tonight we're going to be conversing with one of our favorites, Adam Butler. We actually just got done recently talking about you on a prior episode about all of your experience with DMT. And in preparation for the show, I went back and I looked at the video of the only time that I had done DMT, which was last year. And dude, it's a whole nother thing when you watch it because it almost brings you all the way back like to that moment of what you were experiencing. Dude, my first time doing it, I had tears running down my face. It was just so like beautiful and all-encompassing and everything. But have you ever videoed yourself? Not to sound weird, but have you ever videoed yourself?
Yeah, that's the extra subscription. You got to pay more for that, though. That's not free for life. No, and you know, I'm intellectually curious about videotaping that session and kind of seeing what happens. I would say 95% of the time that I do it, I'm with my girlfriend and we're kind of holding space for one another. So I kind of get the replay from her, and yeah, there's a lot going on there. And short answer, no. Would I be curious? Possibly, but man, I don't know. I've since our last conversation, there's been some pretty unique sessions. So,
dude,
I'd be curious
I would love to get
what
into that. Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Well, I love that you and our boy Danny Goler got together. That's like two kingpins of the DMT world right there. And,
consciousness in general, man.
I mean, the way that you guys can just bounce back and forth between each other. I mean, the shit that y'all have seen, dude, like, it's hard for a lot of people to keep up. You know what I mean? Like, that is because you're learning. Like, you feel like you're learning on that other side. Or do you even call it the other side, or is it just right here? What do you think?
I typically call it the DMT realm.
Yes.
And what I appreciate about Danny, and hopefully I personify as well, is a sense of humility. You know, as much as he can say with clarity and confidence what he saw, his experiences. You know, when he speaks about the laser experiment, what led up to it, he's had some really profound DMT experiences. But he'll be the first to say that, you know, he doesn't know what the code means. He doesn't necessarily, you know, he's not coming out saying he's got all the answers. If anything, he's kind of saying just the opposite. Let's explore this further. Let's get more data points. But to just say like, no, there's nothing here, there's nothing to see. He's just making up shit. I can say definitively from my own experience, that's not false. Now, whether that's my consciousness just making up shit because I'm fanboying somebody, I highly doubt that. Especially if somebody is well versed in the DMT space and is well versed in what an altered state in consciousness, like how that affects your visual perception, and just how dynamic and fluid and all of the weird shit that goes on in that space. And then just the dynamic movement in the laser itself. What I saw was different and above that. So yeah, no, that was an awesome conversation. And I can say since that I've talked to him multiple times. I consider him a friend. I've hooked him up with a couple connections, and he and and I'd like to think that's one of those relationships that we'll just keep bouncing off one another and collaborating in the future. And as we keep expanding our reach and our scope, that we can approach it, because I think we really have the same intellectual curiosity with the scientific bent, but also have no problem exploring the more esoteric and out there and kind of like unexplained shit, because that's what makes it so meta mystery.
Yeah, that's
Hey.
right, dude. Sometimes, you got to take the path that's not really taken very often, and I think that, the whole DMT realm is definitely that, and you were talking about the way that Danny Goler has been going into all this stuff and trying to get people just to look at it. I think that is probably the hardest thing, because there's such a, and I don't know why exactly, but there's such a stigma on DMT in general. And so, yeah, just getting people to look at it, I think that's where we need to be, man. And I'm loving the work that he's doing.
And I would say, and he has had some critics, and some of anybody following the story knows that some of the more outspoken ones. I've listened to the people that have not necessarily critical aspects to say, but they're really not. They're not shooting down his experiment, and they're not saying what he's seeing isn't there. They may have a difference of interpretation. They may have a difference of approaching how you quantify it, or how you analyze the data. But I haven't heard one person. I mean, even like on my thing, I've had some people say, "Oh, you're just looking at the back of your eyelashes," and it's like, I don't even respond to shit like that, because it's like, you've clearly never done fucking DMT, and you've clearly never actually tried to meditate, focus intentionally to see something in it. And it's like, if you did, you wouldn't come up with something as asinine as
Right.
your eyelashes.
Well, those are the people that don't know what they don't fucking know.
They don't.
They really
know?
don't.
But
dude.
I give them the space to say what they need to say, and until they've experienced it. But like I said, typically even the people that have an issue with some of the grandiose things he's saying still will can't really dispute that not only I stand by what I saw and what I said, and hundreds if not thousands of other people are seeing something above and beyond the weird shit that you normally see.
Mm.
in the
100%,
DMT
dude. Yeah, and actually, yeah, I'm super excited to have this conversation, just with all of the research that we've been diving into with DMT and how we're understanding it now. And I mean, just some of the findings that they found within DMTX about like how your brain is really only working like 5-10% of it is firing at any given moment. But then on DMT, whenever they hook up the electrodes or the brain scans or whatever, fucking 90% is firing, and it's firing together. Parts of the brain that don't normally speak together are conversing. And that's what makes it kind of like really all inclusive. It's like, whenever you look at that information, it's like, well, to be more proper, the reality that we say we live in is more of a hallucination than even the DMT realm. And just by that science and looking at those statistics and everything, it's not to say that, this reality isn't real. Maybe just every level of reality is a form of hallucination if everything is all stacked up on top of each other or something like that. I mean, do you think that like all of that is happening here in a sense? Like people have said like it's happening beyond the veil or something like that. But if you think about beyond
all the time.
but if you think about if it's beyond the veil, then that would mean that it's not out there, right? Like it would be here-ish. And where is here? Like, are we talking about here as far as our subconscious goes? Here as far as this reality goes? What do you think about all that?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
Sorry.
I think the unique way, or one of the unique aspects of DMT that can all be tied into what you're asking is how your physiology, the human physiology, can change and get to be sensitive to be way more than your normal five senses. And the fact that DMT, obviously you can smoke it and get that external bump, but we talked about this multiple times, how it is endogenous, it is produced naturally in your own body, how with holotropic breathing and deep meditation that you can kind of get your body to get to those different states. As much as I'm a proponent of using DMT to get to these elevated states, I mentioned in the last episode that, and I remember, and as I listened to it, I was kind of like made this bold claim, like, fuck it, I'm booking my Monroe trip. So I did go to the Monroe Institute
Yes.
last November, and I spent a week there and did the Deep Gateway Voyage meditation, and it was absolutely phenomenal. And I mention that only because I think there's multiple ways of getting to these elevated states of consciousness, whether it be psychedelics, DMT, the hemisync binaural beats from the Monroe Institute, deep meditation, ice baths. There's walks in the woods. There's a lot of ways of kind of getting your body to be able to be more sensitive to different vibrational energies. But the fact that you have just so many more data points and so much more coming in when you're in that elevated state. It just seems to be that that's where that term Strassman's volunteers about the more real than real, and you learn that your body really is capable, even if it's only for a 5, 6, 7, 8 minute period. In my case, anyway, I know when I come back, it's kind of like, oh, that's what my body's like with rocket fuel and with the governor off, and with
Yes.
all the doodads and all of the the cheat codes and all the power ups.
That's what
And
I
you,
was
you
thinking
take that
too, is
back.
that it is kind of like the we have a governor on, and it makes more sense to say, all right, well, governor's off. This is everything that you get to experience if you're able or allowed or capable of being able to access everything that, like, all of the parts, like you don't just hit the gas. Maybe you shift it into fucking fifth gear, like just get real weird on DMT. And I don't know, dude.
Well,
It's
to keep with that analogy, though, that governor is needed. In my opinion, we need to be able to filter out a majority of the sensory input. As much as I love that DMT space, there's no way you could walk around like that
not as a
constantly. I mean,
human.
you have to be
No.
able to filter out the majority of it. But that's where with intentional use, and with the hundreds of times that I've done DMT, every time, whether it be looking to try to see a laser, whether it be trying to do inner shadow work, whether it be just trying to explore the depths and realms of that DMT space, it's always with a really deep and concentrated and expressed intent. So
Yeah,
I
and
think
actually we had recently we had our boy Optimistic Banks on the show, and he's actually somebody who has done DMT and has had a near death experience. And I asked him, I was like, dude, I got to ask you, just out of curiosity, was the near death experience comparable to what you experienced in the DMT realm? He goes, it's the same exact thing. I was like, I fucking knew it. I knew it.
yeah, there you go.
It's crazy, dude. So,
Well, I
but
think it's you just have access to more sensory inputs, and that's a difficult thing to describe because it's way more than just heightened sound or heightened senses or heightened sight. And it's not just that synesthesia where you're tasting sounds or you're feeling different colors and shit like that. But it is really, you are acquiring new abilities to take in information, and that, like I said, I don't have a name for those. I don't know what the fuck they are. I just know that, you are able to receive information, whether it be telepathically. People use the words all the time, like DNA download. I've had upgrades, all of these terms, because it's a different way of getting knowledge. It's not just having some guy speaking English telling you a lecture. Um, it's it's a weird way of absorbing knowledge, and you feel it to your core, and you don't fucking unsee that stuff. Like, it's there.
Stays with you.
yeah,
Oh,
the
absolutely.
whole thing does. Like, you just don't forget it. Like, that feeling is so unmistakable that, it is escaping for sure. I mean, especially for me, I've only ever done it one time. So, I mean, compared to you, I mean, just out of curiosity, if you had to put a number on the amount of times that you've done DMT, could you do that?
Oh, fuck. So I would say, how are you counting it? So to me, each session is when you're taking 3, 4, 5, when you're really pushing it, 6, 7, 8 hits if you have a vape pen, if you can really fucking whack it. So,
Good God.
I mean, that first day I did, I think, 7, 8 sessions, and then within the subsequent months I did dozens and dozens more. So, and then after that, it just kept kind of going. So I said on the last podcast hundreds, and put a plural on it. It was probably more close to 100 then. I would say now I've hundreds of sessions, which would equate to multiple hundreds of hits, which, even one hit is pretty pretty deep. And
Oh
I've
my
had
God.
the whole realm of interactions, and I'd be happy to get into. I listened to a couple of your podcasts ago. I know you have some kind of questions about the entities and some of the more profound experiences. And I know we went over a couple of them on the last interview, but there has been I don't know, a couple new ones or more kind of outlandish, like even that put me into like that what the fuck type space. But I'd be more than happy to field any type of questions on that or how you want to steer kind of
Yeah, we'd love to
those
hear them,
experiences.
dude. We'd definitely love to hear them. And just out of curiosity, how are you taking the DMT? Is it 5-MeO? Is it ayahuasca? Is it the what is it called? The fuck, I can't remember the name of the type, the Mimosa hostilis or something like that.
Yeah, so you just said a lot of things. So, Mimosa hostilis is the plant and the main root that typically you use to make the DMT crystals. So, and in my book, I have recipes on kind of going all over this. So, I'd say the two main distinctions are if you're drinking it. So that's where ayahuasca is when you're hearing about these 7, 8, 10-hour sessions where you're purging yourself and shitting yourself. That's where there's a lot of these retreats down in South America. Ayahuasca is specifically two ingredients. It's the ayahuasca root and then a chatruna leaf. I believe is the plant that they use for the DMT in that, and it's the DMT plant and then the MAOI plant, which allows the body to not break it down as fast. The crystals are made with a simple extraction process. And that's where it basically comes into like a powder form. And if it heats up, it turns into kind of like a wax. And that's typically that's what I smoke. Just to answer your other questions though, the 5-MeO, it's a different molecule. It's similar, but that's where like the bufo toad, when you hear people with the toad venom, so that's a 5-MeO. They also make a synthetic 5-MeO. And that I have not done. That's on my list of things I want to explore. My understanding is that's even potentially like a step higher of just a complete disconnect and kind of like you see even behind the scenes. Actually, you mentioned Danny Gola. He had a good interview with Zoltan Bathory from Five Finger Death Punch. He goes over his 5-MeO experiences, and I think he did a really good job of differentiating the two.
Wow.
But
Yeah,
the
that's crazy, dude. And I'm only just curious about what the difference is between them all because they all seem to be kind of taken from other places. Like you mentioned, the bufo toad. Sometimes it's the tree bark of the Mimosa hostilis, which is actually a native tree to Texas, which is pretty badass.
It's everywhere. The acacia trees are everywhere. So my understanding is DMT is in all mammals. It's once again endogenous to us. It's in thousands of plants, and it's in high enough concentrations where there's several websites, and that's where obviously when I made my recipes where I got it from, where they sell all of those plants, and a lot of them are shipped legally to the U.S. But as far as the crystal, so once you extract the crystal, there's typically two ways of smoking it. You can put it in a regular like marijuana pipe, and you put a little bit of weed or tobacco underneath it, so it doesn't just get sucked through. And you'd smoke it like keef, or like dab crystals or something like that. Well, they make rigs specifically for that purpose. That they kind of look a little, I don't want to say crack pipe-ish, but I mean they are kind of it's a crystal use pipe. But my preferred method is if I'm really trying to blast off and get really really deep, I'll take just a regular weed pipe. I'll put just a tiny amount of weed on the bottom to block the hole, and then I'll put more than I can consume. So in my book I typically say 3 or 4 peppercorns as far as size. Like I never weigh anything. I typically just do it visually, but I'll typically put a little bit more than that, and then you can kind of keep reusing that weed screen, so to speak, because it just absorbs all of that crystal when it turns to wax. But if you can take, in my opinion, that first hit is what really really sets it off. So if you take a deep, long, powerful hit and really fucking roast that crystal, that first time you're really gonna blast off, and it's difficult to take the second, third, and if you can, fourth hit, fifth hit. But that's really where you push the boundaries of blast, full blast off.
What you know is reality just going away, right? Do you ever get nervous when you're about to? Like, do
Every
you
time.
still get nervous?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Every time with
Yeah, that would be me too.
But that's why it takes 10, 15, 20 minutes of sitting there, breathing, praying, meditate.
Getting right. Yeah.
But then the other way of doing it is kind of microdosing it. And, you know, even a small half a single hit is still going to have a pretty good effect on your physiology. But, you know, I don't know how much we got into this last time about using it in, you know, a sexual or intimate setting, where my girlfriend and I use it quite often, where that's where the DMT pen can come in really, really good. So you can, like the 510 carts that THC, you know, vape carts come in. Basically, once you use them up, you can take the top off. You put the DMT crystals in there, and if you heat it with like a hair dryer, it basically turns to an oil, and you can vape it just like you're doing there.
Dude, I don't know how, just out of curiosity, dude, like, and not to get too up in your business and personal here, but every time I've done mushrooms, this is going to be a little graphic, I'm sorry for the ladies out there, but every time I am tripping, there is no getting me hard, dude. Like, that's just not happening. Like, I don't know how are you getting there, first of all?
No,
he's done it hundreds of times, man. You know? You think he's a novice or what?
A couple of things. Shrooms, actually, I use shrooms for like hardcore, like tantric sex, like 3, 4, 5 hour. Like, I've listened to like a 3.5 hour playlist before I meet my girlfriend. I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Where did that go? So I think maybe into what you're just saying, it's nearly impossible to get hot or to get aroused or to get, you know, in that state. If you can get there, it's almost impossible not to. So it's all in your head, it's all in your body. And once you can make that switch and kind of click, and obviously, like anything, it takes practice. But yeah, shrooms can get you into that place where, and once again, not to be too graphic, but I mean, Viagra on steroids, on shrooms for
DMT.
Hours.
Right.
But to answer your question about the DMT, the first time I tried it was kind of embarrassing. So my actual plan was I wanted to try to time climax of orgasm with taking a blast and a hit, and I was going to try to, like, right when I'm fucking about to blow my load, to take a hit and be like, see if I can have these crazy fireworks. Well,
shit,
that didn't happen.
Crazy.
He's a scientist, man. All right.
It was data collection
for science.
But that so as soon as I took a hit, and I want to preface this with the woman I'm with and I'm still with, and her name's Alicia. She's the one that wrote actually the chapters in my book. We've explored a lot of intimate settings together. We had a lot of conversations prior to this, you know, so we were really comfortable with one another, and, you know, our ability to kind of really trust one another is paramount to all this happening. But so we're in the mix of it. I had the pen there, everything's ready to go. And as soon as I took that hit, I completely lost my erection. All the blood went from below my waist up to my head. I started completely just going into a deep, deep trip. And, you know, in that particular case, she knew what to do, which is just hold me, comfort me, hold my space. But the good thing, again, about DMT is it only lasts 5-6 minutes. So as I'm coming out, we were both kind of like, all right, what the fuck? Like, all right, we got to kind of plan that one a little bit better, because that's not going to fucking happen. But so then we took it to, all right, let's try to take smaller hits and, you know, have one person. So again, not to get into all the details, but say, you know, she would smoke and I would just service her, so to speak. So that way, you know, I'm all aroused, I'm into it, everything's good. And then we would switch off. And then so that way we kind of did it slow, and we weren't trying to maximize it in 10 minutes. And we were really trying to make it last. And, you know, so after doing a single hit a couple times, now you want to push it a little bit further. That pen is great. Again, if you like 69ing, I mean, honestly, to take a vape pen, DMT, and 69 is probably one of the best ways to spend a weekend. Once again, not to be too graphic, but if you're into that shit and you're into connecting with your partner and mate, and you're into exploring how your body really gets to feel all of its senses in a really profound way.
That makes a lot of sense, dude. And I actually, have you ever?
Kyle's over there laughing his ass off. He's like, "What the fuck am I getting into?"
But and I may have asked you this before, but have you tried 4-ACO DMT for
I have
ACO
not.
DMT. So I've done that like plenty of times, and I'm super comfortable with it. I still get like a little rambunctious and excited every time it's about to go down because I know I'm about to enter into a fucking reality that is very different. But whenever I get a few times actually, especially like if I'm alone or just kind of I don't have to worry about anything else or kids or any of that other shit, which I would never do this if I have my kids because fuck that. But there's been times where, dude, the only way I can describe it is that I feel like I'm getting fellatio across every single square inch of my body. And it's
That's
because
beautiful.
it's not just like a one spot thing. You know what I'm saying? Like it literally feels like something is holding you and caressing you and loving you in every single possible way. Maybe it's just that dimension. I don't know what it is, but it's like, dude, it's all encompassing, like love in every way. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Like, imagine being loved exactly how you want to be loved. If you could pick one moment for the rest of your life and live in that, that's what it feels like to me anyway.
Yeah, and more than just the tactile sensation as well. So the heightened sense of smell, of taste, of sight, of you really all of those things get amplified and accentuated. And then once again, the new senses come in. So try having the most intimate of situations, and then you're tacking on all these other ways of mending and forming with one another. It really is it's powerful. And then so then what not to sound too corny, but like the snuggles afterwards when you're integrating what the fuck you just saw, that's really where the work, the deep relationship work can come in. And that's where incorporating the feminine aspects, the masculine, really being able to understand. I mean, at that point you're so raw and exposed, there's nothing that you haven't shared, and it's really helpful for me anyway, with my own personal therapy and exploration of myself. I'm certainly not fixed and enlightened. I'm still in the midst of my transformation and journey and all that shit. And
And
It's a
I-
never ending
helpful
journey,
to
I think.
I feel like
have
that.
somebody be there for you like that.
Oh, dude, yeah, that is amazing. I'm so happy you have that person that you can just fall all the way into. That's special. Not a lot of people have that. Even married people who've been together for 20 years don't have that. So yeah, it's a special thing. It sounds like.
Well, that before you just kind of gloss over that point, that's one of the real beyond therapeutic, where in my case it was mental health or suicidal ideation or depression. I think there's a lot to be said about couples therapy, or the more you can understand yourself and know yourself and then love yourself, that can then extend to your mate. And I know in my personal situation, I had 3 long-term relationships end horribly, and that was because that's when I was still a drunk, narcissistic, belligerent asshole, like all this the crap that I was before. Where now the relationships, not only with my girlfriend, but every person that I interact with, because I extend that same love and acceptance and worthiness that I know I have, I extend that to everybody else as well. Even if they're an asshole, I kind of almost give them a pass and just be like, whatever, they're having a bad day, or maybe whatever, they're just a prick, but that's their role in life. But
Yeah, dude.
it really helps dealing with relationships. Like you spend 3 or 4 hours having a tantric sex session with your partner, and you've just explored the deepest aspects of your consciousness. You're not going to wake up and bitch because the milk wasn't in the right spot in the fridge and hey, you left your shoes in the doorway. Like,
Right.
it's beyond
you're
that.
going to be, like you're really going to be thinking about what's your role in eternity and what's the next step of your soul.
Right.
That's
I
beautiful,
feel like
man.
I feel like that's a superpower, man. If you can look at people, even if someone's being an asshole, and still have that empathy or that love, to express, I feel like that's just a superpower, man. So
Well,
you
you
talk
said you
about the
needed that,
senses that
right?
you can.
You said that you were having not an issue, but that you were kind of seeing almost like a lack of synchronicities, and you mentioned that it's because maybe at work you just have so much noise and chaos and
Yeah.
just a lot of bad energy. And
Yeah.
I I felt it in your voice when you were saying that, and it's like
Mhm.
I feel for you because you really got to have a protective shell, because
Mhm.
man, those assholes really will throw that plaque and glob it onto you, where not only you're not being able to really shine your beauty and light and your uniqueness and creativity,
Mhm.
but you're not being able to see the synchronicities and take it in from other people. So yeah, the assholes around you really have to be held at check.
Yeah, dude, and I feel like it just drains you. You know what I mean? You
Oh, it
just feel
does.
so exhausted, and I feel like that can't be underestimated. I feel like you can say that, but no, I feel like it's a real thing, man. When you're around people that are just miserable all the time, and it literally will affect your entire day or even week. Because you come home and you're just tired, man. You don't even have time to do something extra for yourself or for your family. It's like there's a lot to that, man.
Well, you know
But
what you
yeah,
can do,
so
and this is a practical. I mean, you look like you're a physically capable man. So I'm sure like people aren't just gonna go around and stop pushing you around.
I do my
Like,
best.
be that like, and I work landscaping with a bunch of like burly guys, and I'm always that guy that's singing, dancing, laughing. I'm
Mhm.
always busting jokes. Like if somebody's a miserable prick, I will be on them all day about why they're a miserable prick. And,
Mhm.
not to really pull a scab and, try to make their childhood traumas come out, but
Right.
to really not stand for it. Like,
Mhm.
demand kind of resonant bubble around you of only an energy that's acceptable to you. And if somebody comes into you, like and not to just make light of it, but it's like smelling a fucking fart. Like if somebody comes in with bad energy, or it's like,
Mhm.
man, what do you get out of here? Like you
Yeah.
really, there's there's no tolerance for it, and I almost find it enjoyable to call out the asshole, to call out the dick, or to call out, and it
Mhm.
maybe even be like the other day, my friend's 82-year-old grandmother. I absolutely love her, but she gives shit to all of her family members, and she sat there and she was at the house for like 3 minutes, and she's yelling at them to throw a burger on the grill because she's hungry. And I'm like, everybody else is walking on eggshells around her. And I went up to her, kissed her on the forehead, told her I loved her. And I said, why are you already yelling at people? I said, you've been here for 3 minutes and you're already being a jerk. And it's like, everybody's like, oh, you can't talk. It's like, no, yeah, you can. Like, even
Right.
to the old lady. But
Mhm.
as you give her a hug, love her, and then tell her I'll get you something to eat before the burger. So it's not like
Right.
telling her to go pound sand. But
Right.
don't come around here to a family event where everybody's laughing, joking, and what? Because grandma's here, we got to all, like,
Right. Yeah. The last thing you want to do is shrink down and be
no.
what you need to be for that environment.
Right.
Instead, be exactly you for that environment. Yeah, dude.
And in any case, if you see a tough guy being an asshole, or if you see a woman treating a guy like shit, I mean, it works both ways. Like I don't know.
Oh
Not to
yeah.
Yeah,
say that
dude.
I'm walking around as some like enforcer or some like moral judge, but I mean, if somebody's really being a dick or not, and if
Mhm.
somebody, and at the same token, really, be forthright with the compliments.
Mhm.
Compliment the people that are spreading the positive aspects of it. But
Yeah, dude. For sure, man.
I thought about you when I heard you say that. I thought
I
about the
appreciate
assholes
that,
around you.
man. I really appreciate that. Yeah, because like I said, it was a real thing, man. I was really going through it, so I feel like it's getting a little bit better. Like I'm not a very confrontational person, like whatsoever, and so, but then there's also those urges to be like, hey, man, like what did you do that for? Like some people are just so unaware of like their surroundings, and they just like bump into you, and it's like, dude, I want to say something, but then like I said, I'm not very confrontational, and so I just kind of let it go, and then that kind of eats at me because, like I said, I'm shrinking down and not really standing up for myself, and so yeah, it'll eat at you, but I'm working on it, So
Yeah,
I
pick your
appreciate
battles,
you
but
taking the time for that.
yeah, fuck the assholes. It's so liberating to not care.
Oh, dude.
Oh, dude, it's the best feeling ever. Yeah. But look, I do kind of want to get into some of your experiences, bro. Especially since it's been a little while since we've had you on. I'm sure you have gone to that realm plenty of times. I mean, do you feel like you're learning something new every time, or do you ever? Are you learning something new every time, or do you ever go back to a place that you've been to before while on DMT, or both?
Both, both. I feel like each time is really a unique, profound experience, and not every time is profound interactions with entities. Not every time is a DNA download. Not every time is interaction with aliens and shit like that. But even the more mundane, where you're sitting there and kind of enjoying the show. Like I would say the more mundane ones where you're not really having that breakthrough experiences.
Mhm.
Like you're in a 3D IMAX theater with all of the bells and whistles, and you're just enjoying this vibratory hum and symphony of all the beautiful sights and sounds and spinning mandalas, and that's enjoyable. Now, I would also want to preface, most times I'm doing this, it's in bed at night, typically before bed, and normally with my girlfriend holding space with me there. So it's in a very comfortable setting. It's not like I'm outdoors. I don't have to worry about people coming in. I'm about as comfortable and relaxed as it can be, and that's after a, like I said, a 15-minute, session of prayer or gratitude. So, yeah, where was I going with that?
Well, just that, it's not always aliens. It's not always the same thing,
Oh
but
yes,
sometimes
yes.
it
Different
is.
So
experiences.
sometimes it is just comfortable. Like, all right, I'm just gonna lay my head down on the pillow and realize. Sometimes you want to open your eyes. Sometimes you want to shut them. Sometimes you want to cup your ears. Sometimes you want to have music in the background. But even the more mundane ones are, in my opinion, a good practice in knowing what your body is capable of, because you're still experiencing the elevated state and just more data points than your normal walking state. Um, the the ones that you really blast through and enter that space where kind of the unexplained happenings and interactions happen, that that's maybe, I mean, it's less than half, maybe 1 or 2 out of 10, you're really getting that, like, oh shit, where it's the insectoid interactions or the alien
Mhm.
interactions, or but yeah, I guess there's a couple that I'd like to point out. But um as we already talked about Danny Gola and the laser experiment, and I did do a video about that, and I kind of shared my experience. But if I could, if you're interested in it, because I think there's two take homes I really want to take state about that. First is the first time that I went to do it. So I had spoken with him. He sent me a laser. I was all excited, had everything set up, and I don't want to say that I was cocky or arrogant, but I just mentioned about this process that I normally have, where it's normally about meditation, inner reflection, intimacy, like all of these things. But this was kind of the first time where it was this kind of external third outside, like, all right, I want to look at this laser, and I'm trying to whatever get data, or look at something. And so I had everything set up. I had the I had I had it set up where I could kind of lay on the ground if I wanted to kind of like collapse and just kind of be with the DMT. And I took way too big of a hit that first hit, and I just instantly like had a semi breakthrough blast off, and it was like, yeah, no fucking way. I'm not propping myself up. I'm not staring at a wall. I'm certainly not trying to not get a laser in my eye. And I wrote it out. I laid down and I enjoyed my session. And I kind of the point of that was, first and foremost, you really need to respect the power of that molecule. It's not something willy nilly just go into. I would say, you know, I wouldn't just be smoking DMT just to try to see this laser code. I would say probably something that should be left for maybe people that have explored it at least a few times before looking at it.
Mhm.
So that was the first kind of thing, is really prepare for the DMT experience, priority over if you can see a laser or a code, or if you have a glass of water to shine the laser in or whatnot. Really make sure
Mhm.
you're taking care of yourself first. That being said, again, because the last 7 8 minutes after I kind of recouped, I was like, all right, let's get into this. And there was, so normal DMT state, there's all this dynamic movement, that there's nothing that stays still, and this really kind of weird physics happens where everything's intertwining and going in and out. And so that's all happening, and there is that normal chaotic vision. And then if anybody just looks at a laser normal without any DMT, you'll see little swirly kind of movements too. And some of it's maybe reflecting off of dust. Some of it is like just that natural movement. And
Right. Like a
once again,
speckle.
yeah, there's that speckle, and then there's also like swirls. And there are people that when they talk about the laser experiment, and he points it out too, that is an aspect. You do see that, and those are two dynamic aspects of smoking DMT and looking at a laser. That is not the code. And to find the code, it's like you have to kind of peel through layers. It really is just really getting to that. It's almost the best way to describe it is if you're trying to focus in on a microscope. So if you have something under a slide and you're whatever looking at an onion peel, in order to get through all the layers, it really depends on how far you are. So if you're trying to find the specific layer of that, you really need to refine that area. Once you and the first time I did it, I saw it 4 times, and I did 4 sessions that time, and each time I saw the laser after really the code after really looking for it. And within all the crazy chaotic swirling, where there's no boundaries and everything's kind of doing its own thing. There was these streaming lines and columns of very distinct, its own. It wasn't part of the fluid dynamic of either the laser
Of
or the
everything
DMT
else, right?
dynamic. It was very, very straight up and down columns that really were like the reigning matrix in that movie Matrix, like the reigning code that they start the movie off with.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found was also unique was as those columns were kind of scaling down the symbols, as they matched up horizontally, if you had one angle like this and then another angle like this, it would kind of connect and kind of make a line. And then if the other angle had like a C and then the other one connected. So as these columns were going, it also had these not parallel, perpendicular codes that were like skimming through it. And it was a really distinct, separate, and ordered set of information that I've never seen that type of order. Where it was really, like I said, just 90-degree angles, upright columns, and something cascading down. And then, so that first time I did it, like I said, I saw it all 4 times. The next time I went to go do it, which was probably like a week and a half after, I couldn't see it. And I tried for a few minutes. I couldn't find it. Then my eyes kind of got tired, and I looked again, and I couldn't see it. And he uses the analogy of looking at like the old Magic Eye books, where you kind of have to focus in the image, and once it pops, and it's very clear if it pops or not.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I had a long day, my eyes were fatigued, and again, I didn't push it. It wasn't like, no, fuck it, I got to see the laser, I'm doing it tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see how some people don't see it, or that it takes a little bit of practice, but for somebody that has seen a lot of visuals and a lot of weird shit go through my brain, that was it stood out as something unique, and it had its own structure.
Did it seem like it had its own intelligence, you think? Would you say?
No.
It was just
so
streaming by. There was no kind of okay.
So like the entities, and however you want it, the jesters, the machine elves, all of those things are, I would say, sentient beings, and they are like there's a form to them, and there's an intelligence to them. This seemed the exact opposite. This seemed like looking at a computer code just running. That it was mechanical, technical.
So what do you make of that then? Like, what if you?
Well,
I don't know if you.
That's
could.
what Danny says. He's like, what the fuck does that mean?
It's what he's been asking everybody.
He's and in his defense, and I appreciate how he words it. He's trying to sell a documentary and trying to sensationalize this really unique finding, and he's saying it's kind of the code of reality, and that it's some sort of, it states that we're in a matrix, so to speak. Now, that's strong, colorful language, but what else are you going to use to describe this? You can word it in other ways, but the DMT space alone is really unique, and it makes you question, our human footing, so to speak. This kind of makes it look like it just adds one of those like, fuck, really? Like I've got to try to now find a compartment to put this little asterisk in about, with all this crazy chaos and all this dynamic movement, that there's some sort of divine order or
design.
Like, yeah, this is
and
something
it's not
that,
binary, because there was more than 2 symbols. And I want to stress too, a lot of people have asked, we'll write them out, or if somebody could have a photographic memory, and what are they? Are they like Japanese symbols? Are they like hieroglyphics? I could try to draw them out. I don't really, and I kind of agree with him that not to say it doesn't matter. I think that's an important data point, and it'd be nice to have a bunch of people kind of draw those out, but I don't think there's much you could really do with them. I don't, there isn't like a so-called Rosetta Stone or whatever that you are going to match it up with.
ChatGPT has been doing a really good job at decoding certain language. The Boogosphere. Have you seen that? It's where it's like dude, it's crazy. It's like this giant, like not giant, but it's like a ball that's like I don't know, maybe twice the size of a bowling ball that allegedly was floating in the sky like some kind of orb or some kind of, I don't even know what you would call it, but it was like this giant metal ball, and on the outside of it, it had like all these inscriptions and some kind of code. It looked like, it almost looked like mandala, like some kind, you know what it really looked like? It looked like what you would see in a crop circle. Let me try and pull it up because it is
You know what
wild.
my girlfriend pulled up the Easter Island. They had a language, and I can send you actually I can send it to your text if you want. But they had a board, and it's like a not kuka. I'm thinking kookaburra, but it starts with a K. But it's like this wooden plank that has all these weird symbols. Yeah,
I mean, some people are questioning the validity of it, but other people have said like they got it on camera as it was flying throughout the sky, and then the story goes that it hit a power line and that caused it to go down, and so people went to go retrieve it, and whenever they went to go retrieve it, it was really hot. And then whenever they started to take it back, it has a couple of weird properties. So they said that whenever they went to go retrieve it, that it was really hot, but it also weighed like, I can't remember the exact amount. They said that it was weighing like 10 pounds. Like it felt like it weighed about 10 pounds. And then whenever they brought it back to the lab, it like cooled off. Like it went from hot to not just like lukewarm or whatever. Like it got cold and it started weighing more. So it went from 10 pounds to like
dense.
Yeah, like went from 10 pounds to like 40 pounds and just in the transition to the laboratory. And so whenever they were doing some scans on it, what they found is that it's almost like one of those like those Russian dolls where it's a bunch of little or smaller balls on the inside. But the weird thing is that there's no weld marks, there's no cut marks or anything like that how would you get that in there? And so what they're saying is that we don't even have the technology to be able to do that anyway. And I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know what the fucking technology we have nowadays, but that's just the story behind it. And anyway, so somebody put this, if you look right here, there's like this weird kind of symbols all the way around right here. Mm-hmm. And so they put that into ChatGPT and had it decipher. And there was like a message talking about like how humanity needs to raise its consciousness and like wild shit. Like, dude, I'm telling you, it is.
Well,
it is.
See how those are relatively simple symbols? How it's not complex like a Japanese symbol or like that. That's what was in the Cascading Rose, like similar where it was 2 or 3 or 4 angles and or characters at most. You know what I mean? It wasn't like really complex, which again, that's what separates it, where everything else is almost like infinitely complex, and there is no just straight lines or codes or rows or columns. Everything is just so not that, where that's why it was like, oh, I don't see it, and I was like, oh fuck, that's it. And it kind of caught me off guard.
And these symbols, are they changing or morphing into different ones, or are they staying pretty consistent once you see it?
They stay consistent, but they're going through, but they're cascading down. So almost like if you picture like Tetris blocks. So like each one of those Tetris blocks, like each pixel, has a symbol, and then it falls down and falls down, and the symbols kind of rain down and are replaced with the one above it.
Wow, that's fascinating.
And I saw different speeds in each column. So that's where the horizontal movement was weird, because as the columns would kind of go, the horizontal movement would shoot out. Like, I don't know. It was kind of like, it looked almost like sideways lightning shooting out of the rows that were cascading, because the symbols would line up.
And so they're on the same axis then, as far as like spatial wise.
Yes.
Oh,
Which, again,
I see.
So even that there is a definitive axis in that DMT space is a weird concept, because there doesn't. It seems to be more than 3 dimensions, and certainly more than just a 2-dimension axis.
Right.
But this is a 2D plane. Yeah, that there's up, down, and left, right.
Right. Wow.
Yeah,
shit.
It is, dude, it's so strange, dude. Whenever we're just talking about like weird code and stuff like that, like I don't know what to make of that boogosphere. I don't know what to make about what you're seeing with the DMT lasers and everything. But we've heard plenty of people speculate about what kind of reality are we living in. A couple of weeks ago, we had on this woman that came on the show. Her name is the Quirky Cosmo. And she, like, to her soul, believes that we are part that we may be in the eye of some kind of cosmic giant, and she was going into like why she believes that, and just wild. I don't know, like, and so if that's the case, which I don't believe it is, but if let's just play around with that we are some kind of eyeball inside of some kind of cosmic giant or whatever, like, would the coding that you see be some like I don't know, like is it like the nucleus walls that would be holding that kind of code or something? I don't know how weird you want to get here, but
Yeah, no, but even like you saying, and I don't know if it's Ken Wilber or, there's a philosophy of kind of, like the mitochondria being absorbed into single cells, and then like they have their own DNA, and thinking about like cells being part of our system, and think about bacteria and things like that. So, there are potentially levels of consciousness that you could see maybe could, and I could see maybe where that colorful argument could go.
Especially in the quantum realm, like that shit's all around us to the tiniest minute layer, and it seems to be its own little reality where physics don't even matter there. And so, I like, playing around with the
play
idea.
by the rules.
Yeah,
Right.
I like playing around with the idea, like, what if we're the quantum realm to an even bigger kind of thing? You just never know. I didn't know if like maybe
I don't
you
think you
got a
can
little
never
insight
know,
on that.
and I don't think anybody can tell you no, you're wrong. Like I don't think anybody can prove that wrong. I think that if anything, only thing you can do is prove the limitations of the theories that they have now. So I think we need more exploration of these far out things, and I think even just, and I don't act like I understand quantum physics, to the depths, but I understand the concepts, and things do move in that way that aren't just based on space and time, and I've experienced it personally, how it's like, how the fuck could that happen? And whether it be simple synchronicities that happen, or whether it be I mentioned in our last thing how I had an interaction with what I considered my future self. So how the fuck does that happen? And so actually, that would be a good segue
Let's
too.
go.
But as of our last conversation, that was the, like, what's the one, other than that first day where DMT, I say, saved my life, and I had my epiphany, that kind of whatever. So that is probably the most profound experience that I had. The other one after that was the one I mentioned on our last interview, which was when so you're having interactions with a lot of different archetypal entities. You're having some that are gestures, some that are more kind of stern. But then I had one where it was a clear, what I thought, an interaction with my future self. And it was a completely different vibe, completely different energy. And it was me kind of coming in to do a diagnostic check and to kind of calm myself and to let me know, like, this is just part of the process. So that was one of those, wow, this above and beyond normal weird DMT. This is really, really weird DMT.
Seeing yourself, yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't just like me older with a longer beard, or me as a old whatever fucking different person. It really was a familiarity with my energy, my my being. It wasn't familial. It wasn't like, oh, that's Uncle Johnny, or that's my Pepe, or that's a long lost friend, or it really was, oh shit, like that's me coming in. And
Do you think
so
that
that was
people
really
confuse?
calming.
Do you think that people confuse that with God?
No, I don't know.
No. Interesting.
Not for me. But like I said, that was a really clear, my definition of God is an overarching energy, whether it's more of a energy, vibration, consciousness. I don't see it as like a single entity, whether that be Jesus or Shiva or Buddha or anything like that. I think those are aspects of that. But then, so this was, I say about how my girlfriend's typically there. I mentioned also, full disclosure that I'm in this transformative part of my life, right, where I had all this money in the past, where last time I spoke with you, I was still living in my beautiful parents' basement, which this is where I'm still at. They took off for a vacation. My girlfriend wasn't with me. It was a full moon, and my plan was, I'm going to take the opportunity to push it, see where I can go, and really have a deep session by myself. And not like a ballsy, like I need my girlfriend there to hold my hand, but she is typically there to hold space for me. Um,
I like how
I'm
you say
very,
that. Hold space for you. It makes sense.
yeah, because it's not like she's sitting there telling me what to do or telling me to
Right.
breathe or adjusting my body in any way. It's more
Hmm.
just it really is like an anchor. It's like you really have
Hmm.
that rope that's tied to your waist that all right, there is like even sometimes she will kind of actually say in a soft voice like breathe, just
Hmm.
because it's like, oh, fuck, I haven't breathed in however long.
Oh
Um,
shit, that's terrifying.
but in this particular case, once again, I'm very comfortable and I'm gonna explore some deeper realms. Well, this was, and it still stands out as the kind of like what the fuck happened. So the normal interactions with entities or with these other beings are you go into this funky DMT space and there's these, well, again, sentient beings that are interacting with you, whether it be conversing telepathically, whether it be showing you things. Well, this was as soon as I took that first hit. There was no sights and sounds. There was no vibratory hum. I was not in my room. I was not in my bed. I instantly felt like I was basically, I don't want to say like, and this is where I'm kind of asking too, like putting my data out there, like, what the fuck? What is this? Like I was abducted and taken out of my room, and I was in this suspended space of like this blue gel, this blue area where, um, I couldn't move, which was the first time so I've never been in a fight in my life. I've never been restricted. I've never been to the point where I didn't have free will of my body.
Mhm.
This was the first time where it seems like it was a sleep paralysis type thing because I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. I was in this blue space and I had a really, really clear, distinct sensation of like a hot laser scan going up the bottom of my feet and went up my head and then out the bottom of my feet. And if you've seen commercials, there's like this new like rust removal laser where it'll take
Mhm.
like an old hammer or old like
Right.
wrench or something, and you see it scan up the laser and scan back. And man, I fucking tell you, it left my feet hot. It shook me to my fucking core because there was no, like I said, there was none of the crazy IMAX shit. There was no interaction. I didn't see any like grays or any aliens. I didn't see any beings at all. It was
Mhm.
just instant blue space, can't move, physically hot going up my feet, traveling up my body to my head, and then back out my feet. And I came out of that one uh really shook for like an hour or so afterwards. I was just, I mean, I called my girlfriend, I called my friends, and I was just like, I don't, I think I was not in my house or like something fucking happened. And it
Oh
was way
shit.
beyond just, oh, I had a really weird DMT experience where I interacted with some weird shit. This was, well, like I said, was it just I smoked way too much? Was it a combination of too much and a sleep paralysis? Was it,
You
I don't
looked at
know, but
the laser wanted to look back at you, kind of thing. Who knows, man? You sit there
it,
and we're gonna laser you. You know.
well, that's why I think, and there is a lot of similarities between the alien abduction or even, some of like the cryptid sightings and stuff like that,
Mhm.
because once your brain, your body, your human vessel is able to receive information at a different, like I said, vibratory state or frequency,
Mm.
you can really let in some crazy shit. And um, I didn't feel any pain. There was no negative sensation. I don't feel violated. There was no like sexual trauma. If anything, like the next day, I felt stronger. I felt enriched. Like it really, I'm trying to frame it in a way like my body was upgraded. And actually this is a way of how I've been trying to word it to differentiate it, where,
Mhm.
a lot of the profound insights or inputs that you get. I mentioned how it's like a DNA download or an upgrade because it is almost like this instantaneous new information is now in my body. Well,
Mhm.
if we're using that computer analogy, like a software upgrade, that particular night felt that was a hardware upgrade. That was like, no, we're taking out the board and we're putting in a new one, or we're adding in a new whatever. And there was a really, like, that was not a software upgrade. That was a something happened to my body, and that was the only time I've
Wow.
ever had that type of experience or feeling or sensation.
And the sensation, you said that it wasn't painful, but could you describe the sensation, like any kind of feeling at all, or you just didn't really feel it?
Like, did you
No, so
feel
like a hot
something roll
laser.
over you?
So I've had, and maybe like a tattoo feeling, but I've had, as I'm getting older now, like some like skin spots on my head that I've had taken off with like a cosmetic laser. So I don't know if anybody have ever had any like what zapped or hair zapped or anything like that, but it was that type of like instant heat, and it was a zap where it wasn't necessarily painful, but it was an instant flash, but it scanned, it moved up and out, I mean, within seconds. So it wasn't anything that, I mean, before I could even sense that it was
Unbearable.
painful, it was done and out, and
Right.
like
Wow.
sitting there with my nose
So,
dripping snot, being like, what the fuck was that? And again, to this day, now since that time, I've done it dozens of times. I've pushed it really, really deep. I've had interactions with entities. I've had all sorts of weird shit since that day, but nothing even remotely close to that. Just like complete loss of control. And so we talk about how it's your five senses hyped up times, a million, and then all these extra senses. This was the exact opposite. It was the removal of my ability to have any sensation or movement, and I was just along for the ride.
That was
Just an
probably in your best
experience.
interest, though, right? Like, you probably, if you had all of the feelings and the sensations and everything, maybe I don't know, was it kind of like a numbing almost? Like, is that the way that you would look at it? Like, maybe they numbed your body so that you wouldn't have to feel the intensity of the heat scan or whatever.
I don't know. I mean, I just think maybe the process isn't all that painful. Or, but this is where you asked me at the beginning, have you ever recorded yourself? Or now I've had times where I've had some really, like, I felt as though, you've gone some deep places. And when I come back and ask Alicia what happened, she's like, yeah, it felt like I was speaking with somebody else. Or I felt like your body was
Whoa.
like instantly you were just like a different, you were, beating and breathing as a different being. And she said that's happened multiple times. But
Oh my God.
again, she wasn't here this time and no one was here. And that would be one of those, that would be the one session that I would really enjoy to see, because as much as I can talk about the crazy out there shit, and I'm all about talking about, like I said, different states of consciousness. I believe there are UFOs, aliens, and sentient beings and all that shit, but I don't want to just haphazardly throw out there like, oh yeah, DMT and alien abduction and that's what happened. I have no fucking idea, but the fact that I'm so used to blasting off that deep and then either shutting my eyes and being aware of my inner consciousness and my inner world, or opening my eyes and looking at the tapestries and looking at the fish tank and looking at all that shit. This was neither one of those. This was instant, just, yep, we're hijacking your body and we're doing what the fuck we want with it.
Well, dude, I'll
And-
tell you what,
and,
though, we actually over on the Cult of Conspiracy, we've been covering like a lot of alien stories and abduction type of stories, and really trying to get really familiar with it so that we can try and maybe bridge the gap of our understanding about what it is, where they're coming from, what they want, what we are, whatever, right? Whatever message comes through with these stories. And so there's a wild there's a wild parallel with a lot of the stories, not every single one of them, but almost every single alien story that we've been diving into happens whenever somebody is either sleeping or in some kind of trance-like state, whether that is in a meditation or their eyes are kind of, glossed over as they're driving, or maybe it's while they have sleep paralysis or something like that. Or, we've talked to this woman named Karen Wilkinson, and she talks about how she, for the longest time, for years, she said that she was getting abducted by aliens and they were taking her to the same exact place every single night, which is basically like these underground tunnels and deep underground military bases, and they were doing like weird
Yeah, I'm familiar with her story.
procedures and everything. Yeah. And so, but it was always every time she was asleep, right? And so I think that it does have something to do with the state of mind that you're in that almost allows you to be able to, I guess the best term would be project there.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, think about it's just as simple as turning on your radio or TV or computer, or you got to turn on or dial into the right frequency to resonate with it to pick up the signal. So whether that be DMT induced, whether that be lucid dream induced, whether that be trauma induced, whether that be exhaustion induced, I mean, try not sleeping for several days. Or even fasting, and that's why there's a lot of different methods, or even, the tie into like the ancient mysteries where you're walking into a cave for 10 days and going through all this purging and stuff like that. It's like, you put your body through different, whether it be trauma or excited states, you're going to be able to pick up different stuff. I think that's proven, and now it's kind of like, all right, what do we do with it? What type of positive and creative information can be taken from this space?
Yeah, I mean, what do you do with it? Well, I think I tell you what though, I think that you're already doing a lot with it, dude. Like you're doing a lot with it, even if it's. I mean, you're definitely helping other people try and understand what is really going on within these realms with all the experience that you have. But think about the effect that it's had on you. Like, what are you going to do with it? Like, you're doing a lot more with this than you would say buying a new car or buying a new PlayStation, or you know what I mean? Like material shit. That's not really doing anything for you outside of just either A, getting you from A to B, or B, if you're playing a PlayStation, like you're just fucking wasting your time, really. So, I mean, I would say that, it does a lot, but, living in this kind of material world, we want to try and see what we can take from there into this world. And I don't know, and I'm not saying that that's what you're saying at all,
No.
but
And you're familiar with my story a little bit, but as not to necessarily think everybody's read my book or listened to our last interview, but I was the rich white kid from New England that had everything. I was gifted almost $100,000 when I was 18. I've owned 15 properties. I went to college for a long time, like blah blah blah, all of that fucking shit. So what caused me at 41 years old to have my midlife crisis was I was running around burning myself out in that rat race, and I looked really, really good on paper, but that was really a part of my self-destruction. I think I told you too. I took a year and a half off. I traveled the country. I did the deep exploration with DMT and shrooms, and that was, I published my book in 2023, so it's been out for about 2.5 years. And I say the next couple of things with full humility, but to add on to the point of what you're doing, what we're sharing here, and I think the importance of everybody's voice is important, and if you can just click and resonate with one person, it's worth doing all of this. And since that, all of these beautiful synchronicities have continually happened where when I went to the Monroe Institute, my roommate was Michael Phillip. So I don't know, a lot of people watching the show might be know the podcast Third Eye Drops. So he's got an amazing show. He's got a lot of shit going on. I was on his show, and I think my episode now has like 122,000 views.
damn.
It's like, what
Nice.
the fuck is that? I never thought in a million years I would have over 1,000 or 10,000 views. Would be fucking insane. I was on a podcast a couple weeks ago in Australia. It has over 50,000 views. It's resonated with a shitload of doctors. This morning, I was on a conference call with a room full of therapists in Australia, basically as a like keynote speaker to talk about like mental health and bridging the gap with DMT and therapeutics and medicine. I've partnered up with a couple organizations in New England, and I can share these with you that are based on mental health advocacy and giving people access to information and suicidal health help. And I say all this because never in a fucking million years did I ever think that this would be something that I would be doing, and I would be saying that my words and messages have reached hundreds of thousands of people. And more importantly, my inbox is full of heartfelt messages from people that are sharing the most profound shit, from death and horrible trauma and loss and rape and abuse, and the most crazy shit people are sharing with me, and saying that hearing my story or reading my book allowed for them to open up the conversation. And it's not 1 or 2 or 10 or 20 or 50. It's really a lot. And that's what gives me, that's why when you was like, hey, you guys were like, would you mind having a conversation again? There was no hesitation at all, because it's like, if one person can listen to this and be like, you know what, this is worth living on this planet for one more day, and it's worth exploring, figuring shit out. Or, this guy was in a really, really dark place, and now, he was able to shine light on it. It's really worth sharing it. And, like I said, I say all those things not in a like, bragging like, oh yeah, let's, I've hit some really high points. Just the opposite. It's holy shit. I can't imagine that I've had the opportunity to have people listen to me that many times. And if I haven't given that opportunity, it only refines my message all the more. It makes it even more personal and raw to make sure it's not just sensational laser and lights and alien abduction. It really is the heart of it is, in my opinion, self-exploration, mental health, knowing yourself, and really trying to understand the big picture of what the fuck are we doing in as this human in this experience right now, right here. And that's an answer I have no idea what it is, but I know it's not prescription pills, alcohol, 60-hour work weeks, just stacking money.
Right.
That's definitely fuck. Being in a loveless, sexless marriage, definitely fucking not it.
It's out
Working
of the
for an
machine.
asshole, definitely not it.
Right. Yeah. It's just you're able to go to a place where you're operating outside of the machine in a sense. But Asia has her hand up over there. What are you thinking over there, Asia?
Hey guys, so it's actually a little bit off topic from what we're talking about now, but it's kind of circling back to the alien stuff. So I actually had a crazy dream a couple nights ago, and I wanted to share to see just if anybody had some input or like, maybe a similar experience. But so I had a dream, and this is my first like dream involving an alien, but like the first one where I've communicated with them in a dream. And so I'll just try to like it was pretty like intense, but I guess I'll just sum it up to like what I believe to be the most important points. So I was in my driveway and a UFO just like materialized like in the sky, like pretty low to the ground too. And I was like, oh, that's like pretty fucking cool, like UFO. And then it like flew over the house. And then I was like, okay. So then went through the house, ended up on the back deck. And then this UFO, the same UFO, it's like hovering above the yard. And the alien who is, I'm assuming piloting this UFO is on the deck. And at the time, like I'm having people over and there's like it's nighttime, but there's like people in the pool swimming and people on the deck, and either nobody seemed to care that there was UFO in the yard or they just couldn't see him because he was just like standing there, and like everybody was just going on about their business still, like nothing changed, people weren't freaking out or anything. And I like looked at him and I was thinking, I'm like, what is he doing here? And he heard my thoughts and like he responded to me in my mind and was like, um he was basically said like my race is one of many who watch over Earth, and we're just here to like like watch you protect, like we don't protect Earth and keep an eye on you guys. And he was like I was like, oh, okay, like, and then he was basically saying that there's like a war going on right now and it's been going on for a long time, and to us it's like a spiritual war, but it's like very much a real thing that's happening, like I guess like physically, but not like to us, it's like energetic to us. And it was like I looked up to like the sky and it was like he took this like lens off of my eyes, because when I looked up at the sky, it was like I just seen a whole bunch of UFOs everywhere. It was like if you could like imagine a meteor shower across the entire sky, just like in every direction. That's what I seen, and it was like everywhere. And I was like, oh shit. And he was like, I was like, so is this like the war? And he was like, yeah, some are bad and some are good, aliens or whatever. And as soon as he said that, one like a UFO like zipped down out of the sky, and like there were these fireworks that were in the yard, and it like levitated the fireworks up. But as soon as it got into like their ship like blew up and the fireworks went off. And I was like, why did that happen? And he was like, because they can't. I was, or no, I was like, are those bad aliens? And he was like, yeah, they wanted, and I think this part was symbolic, but he said that they wanted to take our weapons from us so that we couldn't like stand up to them basically, or like fight back in a sense. And he said that the reason it exploded is because they can't like physically interact with us because we're different densities than them. And so it's all like has to be an energetic interaction, and like it will harm them if they try to like physically interact with us in a sense. And like it's really hard to put into words, but like when he was telling me in my mind, like it all made sense in the dream. And I'm like, okay, like that makes sense. And like the entire time that I'm like conversing with him, I like just feel like I don't feel scared at all. Like I feel very calm. He had like a very wise and protective energy about him. And it was like, but that was pretty much it. That was the dream. But it was like I've never had like a dream like that. I've had crazy dreams, but that one was like crazy and coherent. Like it made sense. And so I just wanted to share that and see if anybody kind of has had something similar.
What a gnarly dream. That is awesome. Like
I know it's like one of those dreams, like how do you just wake up and go to work after that?
I mean,
like,
Adam,
oh, well.
what is your take on that, Adam?
Well, that was really well described. Like I felt like I was along for the journey there. So very good job describing a dream. I know that can be difficult. I
Very.
would say one of three things. Either that's complete bullshit and she's just making shit up, or
Yep.
she's been watching a lot of videos and movies and has heard that same line 30, 40, 50, 100 times and she's just regurgitating it.
Yep.
Or three, the shit's fucking real. The message she got is very similar and aligned in parallel, which has not only gotten what I've heard from multiple people, but it seems as I'm getting goosebumps, like giving my take. But it seems to also be like what human history has been saying for thousands and thousands of years, or like what everybody has kind of been saying from all different ancient wisdoms and religions. And from my understanding, all of human history kind of says a similar story to what she just beautifully articulated. Of those three options, without knowing this young woman, I'll give her the benefit of the doubt that her body, her vessel, whatever some way, was able to have that veil removed or refined, or her antenna able to pick up that type of information, and she saw an actual intellectual download. And if I could, whether it's bullshit and made up or not, it sounds like that experience is probably going to have a lasting effect on her, and it'll probably alter how she does whatever. And I think whether it's quote unquote true or real or not, the lasting physiological effects and how that will change her way of thinking, and potentially in a positive way, is the important thing. Similar to like a DMT or psychedelic experience. It's like, however, for any of the naysayers that would be like, oh, poo it. Well, I think that will give her a beautiful outlook on life and a helpful one.
Yeah, I had this dream a couple of days ago, and I like just keep thinking about it. It felt so real. It was like, yeah, and I just woke up from it, and I was like, yeah, it makes you feel different. Like you wake up feeling like kind of like lighter, like you know a little bit more, you have a better understanding about something. And I was just like, man, that's crazy. Because I only had one other dream involving an alien before, and that one was like scary kind of. I was just like walking down my road, and it just appeared out of the sky again, and it was like in front of me, but like we didn't have a conversation or anything. And the alien in the dream I just had a couple days ago, he like appeared kind of like human looking, but like super sharp, like chiseled, kind of like super like defined like facial features, almost like to the point where like he's not human because he looks too kind of like carved in a sense, and like it's very smooth skin and stuff like that. And then like the eyes, you could just kind of tell it had like a different, not a human energy about it. But in the dream I had months ago involving alien, he like, I don't know if it was like a reptilian because it was like green kind of. I don't know, like, all the alien races out there, but it was like green and scaly, but it wasn't super tall like how they say like the draconian ones are and stuff. But I felt really scared in this dream. And in this dream, my sister, like she was with me, we were walking down the street, and I just like put my arm out in front of her to like, because she's younger than me, to like protect her kind of. But I would just like didn't want to take my eyes off of that one, and I was scared in that dream. But this one, it was the complete opposite. I felt safe, I felt calm, and I was like, I enjoyed kind of like being in his presence and learning from him.
I buy it. I mean, Adam, I think you were spot on there, dude, as far as like, many different mythologies and religious and spiritual practices have talked about like this spiritual war for a long time. And also like, is DMT not being secreted whenever you're sleeping anyway? Right?
Oh yeah, that is true.
So maybe that was, I don't know, dude. I mean, as I said, we kind of covered a lot of DMT stuff, and we actually learned something new. So from the DMT-X studies, they say that they found that not only is DMT secreted from the pineal gland, but it's also in your lungs, which is why the Wim Hof, like in the breathing method and all that stuff works. Maybe that's why it works, is because DMT is also happening there too, but also in your cerebrospinal fluid, which makes sense for the whole Kundalini thing too, right? So yeah, I don't know, dude.
There's a lot of pieces that tie it together. And even you bringing up your buddy there that had the near death experience and how he kind of like tied it together. Dr. Joe Dispenza, I mentioned him in my book about becoming supernatural. I think is a really medically based book that talks about physiology and how serotonin and melatonin get broken down very easily into DMT. And that there are studies with deep meditation and holotropic breathing that you can pulse it. There's a lot of research and data out there that shows that DMT and another person, and I mentioned this, I believe, on the last podcast, and he's somebody I can probably make the connection with. Anthony Peake. He's written a bunch of books about near-death experiences and altered states of consciousness, temporal epilobe epilepsy, like migraine headache auras and stuff like that. How people that have those states are really kind of have like these psychedelic visions and time lapses and are able to go into these really transcendental states, realms, whatever. He always brings it back to DMT and the natural endogenous aspect of it. And I think that's always there and that's always present. And then, if you're doing like what we've been talking about, if you're bumping that up with the external hit, and I would, as we're talking about it being endogenous, that first day when I took that very, very first hit, it really did feel very natural, very innate. It wasn't scary. There was this kind of nasal cavity sensation, that was very familiar from a childhood kind of time where it wasn't a scary, as much as everything is changing, there's a lot going on, but it did feel normal, natural, organic, endogenous. I mean, all of those words, it wasn't foreign or familiar or alien or drugging or any of those things.
What do you mean by a familiar nasal situation? Can you dive into that a little bit more? Like how something nasally would be familiar as a child?
So if you've ever done the like holotropic breathing where, and it takes 10, 15, 20 minutes to kind of get to that point. But I remember the first time that I actually did that with the intent of trying to, induce your own endogenous DMT. When it did start happening, it really, there was this nasal sensation where it was like snot kind of dripping down the back of your throat. And that was when it was like, oh shit, this really is DMT. You can taste it. And, if I hadn't smoked it prior to, I wouldn't have really understood or realized that. But that ties into, I remember very specifically living in a childhood house. I was 7, 8 years old in my neighbor's back hallway. For some reason, I got instantly put to that time in that space where I had that same sensation that I remembered. I have a very, like photographic, vivid memory. But it instantly brought me back to childhood sensations of swallowing snot in that hallway. But it wasn't snot. It was endogenous DMT or leaking cerebral spinal fluid. Oh, there's a lot of theories of, I think somebody called it like golden nectar. Like it's been like talked about that if you are able to get your body to vibrate and hum, you're able to kind of release it. And that when you smoke it, and obviously now you're inhaling it, and you're tasting it fully because it's in your mouth. It's a very similar taste, smell, feeling than when you're doing that deep breathing.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is so fascinating too, because I've always had like allergies like crazy my entire life. And I'm always like mucusy and snotty and everything. And I got to do this whole Navage thing like every single day and everything. And I'm like, fuck, man, just go. Like, it doesn't even matter what season it is.
Yeah, so this wasn't like nasal, like salty, gross snot coming from shit in your nose or that you're hacking up through your mouth. This was like leaking from your brain and coming down. Like it was, like a different type of drip that was like, where the fuck is this coming from?
Oh, all right. Well, before we get to the next story, I did want to get over to the chat. White Boy Wizard said, "Good evening, you lovely motherfuckers."
What's up, my dude?
He's over there building some shit.
He's always up to something.
Yeah, dude. Fucking worker, man. Love it. Taylor said, "How's it going?" Or "How goes it, fam? Totally here for these DMT talks." And Taylor also said, I think this is a question for you, Adam, that says, if you can go back to the same place in the DMT realm, could people go to the same place, like a meeting spot? Do you encounter the same entities or different each time? So I think there's a couple questions there. However you want to answer that.
So I've never experienced the same entity twice, and I've never been to the same location twice. That being said, there does seem to be a flavor or an ambiance or a sense of like this is the group or this is the archetype or this is the type of energy or flavor that session is. But I think that's my understanding is with like the DMTX project where they are trying to quote unquote map it. And I don't think that's like, come up with like an actual like GIS map of it, but more, are there similar shapes? Is it moving? Is it morphing? Is it dynamic? Is it three-dimensional or does it seem to be hyperdimensional? Are there entities? Are there not entities? And I think that's where, and so now I've done it hundreds of times. Like we mentioned, it never gets easy. It's always, I'm always kind of nervous going into it. It'd be maybe similar to, like if you're a snowboarder or a skier, if you're going down like a triple black diamond and it's icy, even if you've done it 100 times, you better be cautious and give it respect because one false move and you're gonna get slipped and go off the trail and die. And it is kind of like that type of respect and reverence where if you think for 1 second that you're gonna go in there and kind of do your own thing, that's where it can get a little bit off. But I've had when I was first that first few months, I felt as though I had a welcoming committee where it was those gestury machine elf type things where I would come in, and I've discussed this on quite a few other areas, and I don't know if it was with yours or not, but it was like I was like an animal at a zoo. So when my human consciousness would get lit up by DMT, or almost like a firefly in a dark field, when I got into that space, they would kind of be able to glob on and see that this human is now glowing with this like DMT. And once I started going into it often, I felt as though they kept coming back to me excited that I was there. Like was this kind of like welcoming committee, but it wasn't every time like, oh yeah, that's Jeff the elf or that's whatever, it was more just, this is the weird group of and I could see where people call them entities or excuse me, jesters or machine elves because they were that kind of fun, amusement parky, light, come with me, let me show you type energy. But then maybe to answer her point too, some of the other kind of common archetypes where people talk about insectoid or mantis beings. Again, I think it's going to be colorful language and everybody's going to have their own way of describing it, but I could see the distinct difference between the small, typically tinier gestury elves, and these beings are what I consider like the mechanics or the technicians of that space, where they're the ones that are kind of coming and interacting with you. In my opinion, I've had those insectoid interactions where they either showed me how to use my body properly, whether it be to breathe properly, pulse fluids properly. It showed me some of those extra senses and what they could do. Or in a couple of cases, they kind of actually took control of my body like a transformer globon or like that Venom suit where they, you'd get into that space, there would be an interaction, and then they would come in and really kind of like play your human instrument like a professional artist and musician knows how to play a human instrument, where we as most and that's kind of like a good takeaway, where up and until you really know the limits of and the power of your human musical instrument and how it can be played in all the different ways it can make notes, you really don't know how divine and how beautiful you are. And that's what those mantis beings or those insected beings did for me, where they're really, they're showing you all the bells and whistles of this human suit.
Oh my!
But so there are those distinct groups, and then there's the pleasant, motherly, feminine archetypes that are really nurturing and loving, and some are sexual, some are not. There's
of these different entities, not to cut you off, but was there any correlation that you could pick up on as far as maybe your state of mind or maybe what you were going through before having these different entities approach you or experience them?
Not as much of a correlation as I would like,
Okay.
because you'd like to
That's
think
what I
that as
figured.
much as the intention and as much as the prayer and meditation prior to would kind of like direct and steer it, like almost like you could,
Meet you where you're at kind of thing.
yeah, like you're picking the movie ticket, but sometimes it is like you never know what you're gonna get. But um, there have been, and I think I always try to go for like the overall flavor. So sometimes if I'm going into that space, maybe it's just I'm not looking for anything. Maybe I just want to express gratitude and joy and thankfulness and appreciation. And I'll go into the space with no, you know, notion of what I want to get out of it. It's really just to go in there and give thanks. But then there
Mhm.
are some other times where I'll go in there and be perfectly honest, what am I going to do with my next career path? How do I align with what's true to me? Whatever. How do I get laid next? Who am I gonna who am I gonna date? Sometimes there are kind of like, what am I gonna? Can you give me any guided direction? But if it, you're kind of you're at
Just going for
their
the
whim.
ride.
So yeah,
Right.
in most cases you really are. You're
Right.
in their realm.
Right. And so as far as setting the intention, you really just want to get your mind right, get kind of relaxed but wherever the DMT trip goes, that's where it's going, basically.
Yeah, and I mentioned, and obviously what's right for me is subjective as it going to be for everybody else. But like, I would say not out in public, not driving, not in a room full of other people, not
Yeah.
if you're out like camping and there's a shitload of mosquitoes.
Hmm.
If it's in the middle of the day, turn off your phone. Really just be conscious of what you're doing. Like
Right.
just like hopefully we wouldn't just whatever make love willy nilly or
You want to be present.
whatever. Yeah, you
Yeah.
in extra hyper present.
Right. Ha-
Knowing that this is going to be a hell of a jump and a hell of a journey, and
Yep.
um, yeah, I've never. The only time that I had a little bit of a pushback was when I did maybe have a little bit of cockiness or arrogance, and I kind of went in there really thinking I could like get answers on like how the pyramids were built, or
Hmm.
like go in there and be like, I want access to the Akashic records and the fuck I want, and that I didn't get those answers.
Hmm.
If anything, I don't want to say like got kicked out of the space, but it was almost like I didn't have any fun interactions for several sessions until I made my amends and kind of said sorry and then
Hmm.
asked to get back into the club, so to speak.
You're in my
Well,
world now, Grandma.
Right. I wanted to ask you, and I don't know if you've had experience with it, and I don't remember if I'm actually willing to bet that Jonathan didn't have his experience the last time we were talking to you, but have you ever experienced the void where it was just like nothingness?
That first day, I mentioned how I did 7 8 sessions and it was a total of 40 45 50 hits. Um, each session, so that first session, introduction to the sights and sounds, you get a feeling of what it feels, but no weird profound insights, no entities. Again,
Mm,
pushed it. That last session when I say I had my kind of life-changing, life-saving epiphany,
mm,
that was also similar to that alien where everything was blue and
mhm,
paralysis, but that was different where there was also no hum, there was no sights and sounds, and that was kind of like this black void or this black space where that's when I got my first, I would say, like DNA download. Well, that's when
mhm.
I got that instantaneous answering of a lifetime of questions in a split second. They were all instantly connected. Um,
Mhm.
Wow, I just looked it up,
that
and when we had our last conversation, that was July 12th, so it was before my original, my
That's
first
what
and
I
only
thought.
DMT trip. Holy shit, I thought we had talked about this already.
oh, well, I listened to some of your other podcasts talking about it. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah. So yeah, it is interesting talking about the void, and I've beat it to fucking death trying to figure out what it is, what it meant, what it could mean, and everything else. And I'm sure everybody's void experience is very different, But one thing that I really took from that is that I thought that I had like literally deleted the entire world, including myself and my family. Like I thought I legit deleted existence. Like I hit some kind of button that fucking ended the program, right? and it was really scary, and that really fucked with me for a long time. But what I got from it afterward was like, oh wait, I was still there. So it wasn't necessarily a void, so to say, because a void doesn't have anything in it, and I was there, you know, me as in my awareness of being there, right? And so but yeah, dude, that really fucked with me for a little while.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's tough to put into words, but yeah, once you see kind of the back of the house on once again, what do you see in the back of the house to? Consciousness, God, the Matrix, you know, again, and maybe from somebody that, like, I studied entomology for many years in college, so I was like a trained scientist in using, you know, scientific words, as opposed to somebody that, you know, studies religious and you know, spiritual texts, how they would come to describe the same thing, where it's difficult to try to describe the space, and each person's upbringing and subjective background is going to flavor how they try to describe it, but it really is indescribable. It's something that until you experience it, you know, it's
I mean,
it's like
describe
talking about having an orgasm. You can talk about it, but until you have one, you don't know what the fuck it is. Or you can talk about, you know, watch a video on how to swim. Yeah, all right. Well,
Right.
get into a pool, and then, you know, that's swimming. And it's kind of
Right.
like, you know, have your human consciousness go from 5 senses at a dial of 10 to 50 senses at a dial of 1,000, and then,
Right.
you know, tell me what the fuck that means. You know, I don't know. I'm
Right.
still trying to put it into words, but
Mhm.
what I think it means is that we're way greater than I think that we give ourselves credit for. That we are divine and connected to this greater being or source or consciousness, or something that we are all kind of a part of. And
Mhm.
you know, Sean, kind of what we were talking about, the not to get bogged down with the
Mhm.
assholes of the world, the societal plaque, the stresses of everyday life, the social media smut, you know, all the crap that can clog up those senses, and just the opposite: free them, liberate them, accentuate them, get them going. And for
Mhm.
me, psychedelics and DMT in particular really was able to remove all that shit. And
Mhm.
you know, 3 years into this journey now, I can honestly say, and that I think I ended the podcast with you last time similar to this. I'm the most happy, content, blissful that I've ever been. I still wake up every day with goosebumps. Every night I go to bed and I say my prayers of gratitude every day, and I do the most menial, shitty fucking tasks that I'm getting paid a third of what I used to get paid for, and I'm happy as fuck all day. I whistle, I skip, I dance, I joke.
Mhm.
Um, where before, everything was the exact opposite of that, and I brought everybody else down around me. And I think everybody has that ability within to
Yep.
have a blissful, happy life. They just have to look for it and know that they're worthy of it and demand it.
Oh, dude, and that's that. So you're living like a kid now, and that's really all it
Fucking
is. Like
awesome. Like,
you
yeah.
just took all of that fucking heavy
Yep.
gorilla off of your back, and now you're able to experience life as a little kid, like all of
Now,
the scriptures say.
full disclosure, because I know there's going to be some people like, yeah, the fucking guy's 45 years old living in his parents' basement. Like, it's easy for him to say. Eh, eh, Duly noted. I get it. But I've owned my properties. I've made my money, and I'm sure those will both come again. And I know how fortunate I am to have the security of family to lean on. So and without them, honestly, none of this would be possible. So I
Right.
owe a huge debt to my parents and my family and friends that have supported me. But um, it is accessible to everybody. It's just demand it of yourself. You know, it's really like an analogy of me now being 4.5 years sober of alcohol. Like, it's really, really easy for me to stay sober because it's so easy to feel good, not wake up hungover, feeling like shit, sweating during the day, worrying about having to shit yourself, being overweight, being like all of that nasty shit. And it's so easy to live a content, happy, blissful, connected life because you don't have the stress, anxiety, suicidal ideation. You're not stressed out and having road rage. You're not yelling at your spouse. You're not pissed at your coworkers. Like, you enjoy life. And when shit hits the fan and you have bad shit happen, you deal with it and know that there's a lesson there, and that you kind of accept it with grace,
Mhm.
instead of being a little crying bitch like I was and blaming everybody else or being like, woe is me. And it's like, no, you know what?
Right.
Well, that's the
Just own
easier
it,
thing to
take it,
do.
and
You know, it's just the easier thing to do rather than dealing with your own shit. You put it on everybody else. You know, it's your own circumstances is the reason why you're unhappy, and you know, God dealt you a shitty hand. It's like, and I'm not, we've all gone through that. You know, obviously we've all gone through that. But whenever you can finally shed all that off, dude, and realize that literally there is a switch in your mind that you can just change perspectives. And it's, of course, it's like, it's simple, but it ain't easy kind of thing. Like trying to understand what that is. Like here you are, dude. You're in your situation, and you're happier now in your situation than when you were big pimping with the cheese, right? Like,
well, that's one of the only things you have control over, and I think you said it beautifully. That you do have control over your perspective, and that's damn near one of the only things you do have control over. Like, you're not going to remove all the ignorance of the world or all the assholes. You're not going to make everybody aligned with your way of thinking. You're not, and nor should you. You know, it really is a perspective, and there's the darkness and the nastiness and the fucked up shit that I've seen. And I've experienced and got the proverbial like Girl Scout badge or Boy Scout badge. You know, I kind of said like my soul sashes. The fact that I've seen all that shit, and the fact that I've had some stories from amazing people that have shared their dark shit with me. Any day on this other side is a blessing. I feel like this is my second chance at life, and I'm never, ever, ever going to squander it again. I'm never going to raise my voice to another person. I'm never going to threaten to kill a guy like I did before. I'll never just, and if I have stresses in my body, and I'm not saying I don't, once again, I'm not some enlightened soul that's got all this shit figured out, but you know, if my foot hurts, I'll untie my shoe and address it. If I'm thirsty, I'll get a drink of water. If I'm getting a headache, I'm going to figure out why. If my relationships are going to shit, I'm going to figure out, like, I won't let anything settle unless, you know, I'll listen to those stressors or those lights, where a lot of people just put masking tape over them and don't deal with them, where I lean into anything that doesn't make me fucking happy. I have goosebumps. I'm kind of being like, well, why the fuck not?
So
me.
You've essentially learned the old adage of living in this world and not of this world. Then
I'd like to think so, and it's because I lost everything too. And again, easy for me to say. There's nothing anybody can take from me because it was all lost. I mean, I'm still kind of working from ground zero, and fuck it. I've got, you know, I'm not married. I don't have kids. I don't have any homes now. All my businesses I sold. I'm a landscaper doing freelance flower work and traveling the country. And I just actually, at the end of July, I'm traveling from Rhode Island to Oregon to move my niece out to college. So like even that, I mean, and that just happened last week. So what a beautiful synchronicity. Now, like what's going to come out of that beautiful 3,000-mile journey? I have no idea, but I'm excited as fuck. And I'm going to eat ice cream and drink coffee and whatever, smoke some good
Sounds
weed
like a
and travel.
good time.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. I'm happy for you, man. I'm glad that you're doing well, man. And from the first time that we interviewed you, I was like, man, this guy just has an understanding, you know, and I hope to one day be at that level, dude. You know, maybe I might need to do some DMT. I don't know. After Jonathan's experience, it kind of scared me a little bit. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Well, that apprehension and that respect and that reverence is needed, and I'd much rather see you have that amount of caution than lack of it. And the time may never be right. And I definitely want to say this to you. You know, listen to your intuition, listen to your gut. If it's clearly saying wait, not time, then absolutely wait, not time. But there may be a day, and you're brushing your teeth, and you're like, fuck, today's the day I gotta smoke DMT. You know, that little chirping.
Right. Love it.
And you know, as we're kind of winding down, you know, I'm sure you're probably going to ask, like, you know, how people get in touch with me and how to contact. One of the things I've been saying on a lot of all of my podcasts actually is that if anybody does want a free copy of the book, you know, I've been sending a shit ton of free PDF copies. So if any, you know, it's not a matter of making a couple bucks on this. It really is whatever the next step in my life will be. Well, I'll figure that out. But as far as the book, you know, I'd be happy to send a free PDF copy. If anybody wants it, just send me their email and I can send that out to you.
Well, if people do want to support you, though, I mean, do you have it on Amazon or on your website, or where else would it be?
Yeah, so it's on wherever you can get books. So there's a paperback copy, there's an Audible version, and there's a Kindle version. You know, so you can get it either way. I did recently just start a YouTube channel where I started putting all my interviews and some original content. So that's a good way of communicating with me. And then Instagram is probably the social media that I use most. And I mentioned about the most rewarding aspect of all of this is the personal phone calls, emails, and messages that I've gotten from individuals that are really going through some shit. So I offer, if anybody wants to have a personal conversation, call, email. Again, not that I've got all the answers, but if somebody's looking for a reason to give one more day on this planet, I can definitely give you one if you need it.
It's fucking awesome, dude. You're Adam. You're just an amazing guy, man, and I love you.
Thanks, Sean. I love you too, man.
Yeah,
And I can say
awesome.
that and mean it.
And by the way, I'm not much of a reader, to be honest, and it's kind of embarrassing, Like I feel like I have dyslexia, but that's probably still the last book I read cover to cover. And that's I just picked it up and just kept reading it, dude. I was like, this is so fucking fascinating.
Well,
and
and
I love
it's a
the
short,
information that you're putting out
100-page
there.
field guide. It wasn't meant to be some long, deep research thing, and and I appreciate you saying that, because that was the whole kind of point, was not to get bogged down in all this shit. And each chapter can kind of be read separately, and yeah, there's enough big, thick, 400-page kind of trip reports out there. That's not what I wanted to do.
Oh, dude, I just bought the Nag Hammadi text with all of the Gnostic teachings back from I think it was written in the year 300 something. And dude, that is a thickum. It's like 800 something pages. I was like, damn, I didn't know it was that deep. So I ain't got time to read 800 fucking pages, but I'll dive into it.
You guys would love this as far as big books. Actually, if you got it up right now, Manly Hall, Secret Teachings of All Ages.
Yes, we've read a lot of it actually on the show.
Oh, actually, yeah, you had Ronnie Pontiac on.
Yeah, dude.
That book. So I'm a huge reader, and I would say that book was probably one of the densest, but the wording on it is so tiny and the font so tiny, but it's like a 600-page book. But
736 pages it says.
Well, not the one I have.
There was some chapters in that book where we were like, we weren't ready yet, because we just weren't understanding it at some point.
That's a 736.
Yeah.
That's what you just said. Yeah. Yeah, fucking nuts, man. But
yeah, dude. Yeah, some of them are really thick, and maybe it's not necessarily meant to read cover to cover, especially 736 pages.
It took me almost a year to read that.
Yeah.
That was a tough one.
Yeah, it's pretty insane, dude. Well, look, I mean, dude, we love you, man. We love having these kind of conversations. They're very eye-opening, and we can tell that you're sincere and you're genuine, and we can tell that there's, we didn't know you back when you were an asshole or a douchebag or a drunk fuck or whatever, but we can tell that there absolutely has to have been some kind of transformation, just because, dude, the aura and the essence and the energy that you give off, dude, it's unmistakable. Like, that everything that you say, you're 100%, you believe it, it, your body encompasses it. And so we appreciate you, brother. And
I appreciate that. And I accept that as a compliment. And, before maybe I couldn't have. So thank you.
Of course.
And I appreciate what you guys are doing too. I appreciate your content, and you're getting together a good tribe of misfit thinkers that are talking about some deep shit. I love it.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Right, dude.
Hey, dude, we don't know what we don't know. We're just over here learning, and we always say, dude, we're not the teachers by any means. We're just stumbling across a lot of information, and what vibes with you, keep it. Whatever doesn't vibe with you, I mean, for example, we've had people who make satanic sacrifices to the demons of the Goetia, for example. It's like, well, maybe that's not for everybody, but it's interesting to learn how the whole thing works, So, it's just about getting all the different perspectives and learning what all is possible. That's really what we want to try and encompass on this show. So, look, all the one out there, go check out Adam Butler's DMT guide. It's on Amazon. As he said, you can always just email you to get the PDF.
BooksByAdamButler@gmail. I've had people just say, listen, I'm broke, I don't have the money, but I really like your book, and I don't want that to be an obstacle. Once again, it takes me 2 seconds to send an email, so what the hell.
Hell
Love
yeah.
it.
Ain't no
Love
big
it. And
deal.
if I'm not mistaken, is it the first chapter that is titled "Who the Fuck Am I"?
It is. That's
I
a
love
very
that.
important question through all this journey.
I've
You need
mentioned
to say
that.
with passion, really, who the fuck am I? Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I've
Kids
mentioned that a couple
running
times. 'Cause
down
I'm like,
snot all of that. Yeah.
What a great name for a chapter. I was like, oh,
Well,
I'm gonna like this book already.
So
You know.
I'm halfway through the next book, which is more about integration and kind of like putting together some of these lessons. And I'm starting that book with the same title of the first chapter, which is "Who the Fuck Am I?" Because
Love it.
I think it's almost important. Like almost every day, you should start off with "Who the fuck am I?" and
Mm-hmm.
don't let anybody push you off that path. But
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Of course.
Hell yeah. Shauno, did you pull that card yet, sir?
Oh, you know I did. We got the 9 of Swords.
The 9 of Swords. All
Yeah.
right, let's see what the 9 of Swords is. It says, an anxious mind leads to restless nights. Explore how you handle worry and stress to transform its impact. A challenging and fraught card, the 9 of Swords opens the floodgates to anxious thoughts and worries that keep you up at night. The figure on this card sits upright in bed, alone in darkness, as 9 swords dangle ominously above her head. Are these swords real, or are they imagined worst-case scenarios? The blanket that covers her depicts red roses, symbolic of love, showing that there is compassion surrounding her if she would only uncover her eyes and see. The spiritual message behind it says stress and anxiety are taking a toll on your physical health. You may be feeling alone or spending too much time ruminating about the same things. Journaling, walking in nature, or spending time with others can help you work through these negative thoughts. So, all right.
Or a
Well,
little
that's-
DMT, you know? Who knows?
Well, that's to me that's shadow work. That's going in, seeing these potentially ominous swords hanging over you, but knowing that you got to lean into that and go through it. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, you got to purge the stress and anxiety and deal with it, not run from it.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And
fuck
more than
those
likely,
swords. Take those swords and take them and stick them up her ass.
right. And more than likely, they
Sorry,
are
that's
are
ended
the
like that.
worst case scenario imagination working against you. So
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
it,
own
dude.
it, embrace it.
No, I think that was a good reading, dude, and especially for those that don't know how to kind of get their mind in line and to work for them and not against them, then yeah, those swords can they can seem definitely real, and probably more real than real if we're talking about the mind here. So yeah, man, look, we're going to get into the meditation. Thank you so much, Adam, for joining us. This was fucking awesome. Every
Thank you.
conversation we
I
have with
appreciate
you
it.
is awesome, and we hope that whenever that next book comes out, you come back on to Meta Mysteries, my brother.
For sure. Yeah, maybe we'll cross paths and have ice cream together someday.
oh, dude, say less.
Say less.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, brother. We'll see you next time.
Bye,
Bye.
man.
All right, guys. Adam Butler, one of the best. I mean,
Such an
just
awesome dude, man.
you can just feel it emanating from him. It's awesome to get that kind of perspective from somebody who's done DMT hundreds of times. I actually said that I thought he did it 2,000 times, but maybe he's just lost count. Who knows?
Who knows?
You know,
Who
how do
knows
you?
what we're at now?
I can't imagine there's some kind of tally marker that he's like, this was the first time and this was the 99th time or something like that. But either way, I mean, such a fascinating perspective, and you can see just how it's transformed him. So, yeah, Sean, and this is why, you know, to be honest, this is kind of a reason why we talk about DMT a lot, because I know that there's, like, we all know that there's something to it. Like, it's naturally secreting in our body, and also, like, for the people that think it sounds scary or whatever, like I want to talk to other people who have experienced amazing things and, you know, see the transformations in them and how they're looking at the world differently and everything. So, I mean, Sean, after hearing Adam fucking Butler, dude, are you still on the fence? Are you still a little hesitant?
I mean, I'm still in the area of, like, I guess I haven't really fully been called to do it, you know, and so I'm just going to give it that respect. And I like how he said it, and it really made sense, you know, like he'd prefer that people would have that kind of hesitancy rather than just jumping into it, you know, and I feel like if I'm meant to, then I will, you know, I'll go with the flow.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
at the moment, though, it's like, it is what it is right now.
As you should with pretty much everything. You know, you don't want to rush into anything. You kind of want to take your time and get to know it a little bit. And you want to wait for the right time in your life, because last thing you want is to be arguing with somebody. Maybe you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, or maybe you got fired, or your girlfriend or whatever just broke up with you. Like, maybe don't do psychedelics on that day, you know?
Right.
And so there's a time and a place for it for sure. But
Yeah, and I just feel like, and I know, and just from what Adam has said, and I believe that it's very therapeutic, you know, but I just, I don't know, I don't want it to be that 1% chance where it just shatters my reality just a little too much, and I can't put the pieces back together, and I don't know, maybe I would learn from it, and maybe I could still get by, and it would end up being a positive thing, but I don't know, it's just one of those things, man. I feel like you can just go a little too far and not be able to put it all back together.
oh yeah, I mean
So,
it's a healthy,
That's my hesitancy.
it's a healthy hesitation, I would say, sir.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
whenever that time's right. And look, this is not like a show to try and talk everybody in to try and DMT or anything. That's not ever really the case. It's just that, a lot of times psychedelics get very demonized, and we like to show the positivity that comes from them, because the majority of the time, whenever you're talking about, organic psychedelics, right? Like the majority of the time, it's something really profound and awesome and great, and something that you can apply to your life for the rest of your life. So we just want to show some of the good benefits of it as well.
Yeah, man.
That being said, it is about time for that meditation, and I got an idea. So we're going to get a little crazy.
I like your ideas. I'm ready, man.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, look, if Sean, do you have anything else you wanted to add before we get into that meditation?
No, man, I'm good. I hope that everybody enjoyed the episode, and maybe you got something from it. I know I did. And yeah, man, I thought it was a great episode. I just love talking to Adam. Like, something about his voice, man, it just sets me at ease. I almost forgot I was one of the hosts, I was just like sitting there listening to him, so it was a fun one.
Oh, dude, whenever information like that is coming through, it's easy to get caught in a trance. You're just
man.
soaked, like just sucked in right there. So
I was there.
I guess we're going to get to that meditation. That was a very interesting tarot reading as well, Sean. And so, yeah, I guess we're going to end it right here. And what we like to say is that if Adam Butler came here and he taught you anything, it's that you don't know what you don't know. So don't just get weird.
Stay weird.
Open doors inside your mind. Leave the ordinary far behind. Colors swirl and stars align. In the meta mysteries you'll find.
All right, that was a very interesting meditation, Sean. You have anything wild happen there, sir?
Nothing wild, man. I don't know what it is. Maybe because we've been meditating now for a while. When we first started, I felt like I would have these profound experiences. I remember having like flashes of light, or just certain things happening that have never happened to me before. And now I just feel that I might just need longer meditations. Maybe you develop some sort of what's the word, like a immunity, and so now you have to meditate for longer periods of time, and
Right.
so and I feel like that's why I probably have more profound experiences when I'm trying to go to sleep, because I stay like aware that I'm like, I'll close my eyes, but I just stay completely aware. And that's when, like, when I'm laying there for like 30-40 minutes, that's when something will happen that's like super strange. Like the other night I had this weird, it looked like a giant, kind of like that image, but it was just the pupil, just the center part, and that's all I could really see, and it was kind of faint, but it was obvious what I was looking at. And the thought I had was like, because I want to say I actually kind of woke up, but I kept my eyes closed and I was aware, and it felt like I was observing consciousness, like it was just like staring at me. Like, I don't know what that was, but I don't know, man. I feel like I just need longer meditations anymore to really have any kind of profound experience, if you will.
Hey, say less. We'll do some longer ones. You want to start going 20?
Might have to, man. Might have to.
Let's
Might have
go.
to turn off the light and everything, man.
Yeah, that was only 12 minutes, which is usually around about where we like to. I don't know. It's just. I'll be honest with you, dude. I actually thought that was a lot longer. Like, I thought that
really?
we went longer in that meditation than we do all the other ones. I thought that we were going to be at, like, whenever I opened my eyes, I was like, dude, for sure we're going to be at least 17, 18 minutes right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like, it just felt like it was so long and in depth, and I had like a bunch of like weird things that were showing up to me, which one of them was really strange. I actually in that meditation, randomly out of nowhere, I wasn't thinking about it. I just saw it, where it was like like a video image of me like throwing up some kind of yellow like acidly, like I don't know, puke, or it was almost like I was purging, and I was like, oh, that's interesting that I would see that in a DMT meditation. You know, it's like very ayahuasca like. I was like, wow, that's crazy. I wasn't even thinking about that at all, and
Weird.
here it was. It just showed itself to me.
Right.
So
Oh, that's
some
cool.
kind of
That's
purging
crazy
thing.
how things like that happen where you're not even expecting it, you know? Like it's just like out of nowhere. And you're like, what was that? You know, even if it's just for a second or two.
Yeah,
So
and
strange.
I mean, there were some other things like so have you ever seen Limitless with Bradley Cooper?
Yep.
So in the beginning
the
of the
NZT or whatever
NZT,
is that what it's
yeah.
called? I'm surprised I remembered that.
Yeah. So in the beginning of the movie, it was like a lot of other movies, but it looks like a car or somebody or something is like moving really fast through a very busy city, right?
Yep.
And it's like
That's a cool shot.
you're only getting blurs on either side, and it just looks like you're moving like the Flash, you know?
Yep.
And that's what it kind of felt like, that it felt like I was in like New York City. Maybe it was because of the sounds or whatever, but it felt like I was moving through alleys in the city, and it was like Groundhog Day. For every like repetitive sound, it was like, oh, well, I already went to sleep, and now I'm waking up, I'm having to go back to work, bang on a hammer, I'm having to do all this, and it was just very repetitive and mundane almost. And then it was like, then I would, I was listening to the elevator pitch to it too. So it was like amplifying, and it was like, it was more of the same, but like more inclusive or more information. And maybe it was like me like growing in my spiritual process or whatever, maybe just becoming more aware of whatever goes on in my normal daily life. And it seemed like to be progressing at a weird rate, but it was like strange because I've never even been to New York City. And so why would I think that I was in New York City, you know? And I don't know, wild shit happens in meditations. Like,
It does.
And sometimes if you just, I mean, yeah, you can kind of guide your meditations a little bit. Maybe you want to get a little imaginative and try and be like, okay, I want to go see Garrick the fucking leprechaun or something like that, right?
Shout out Garrick. Yep.
Which is pretty cool, because what happens with those where you kind of have an angle of where you want to go, it's cool because you almost start the fire and your subconscious like builds it.
Right.
Which is really cool. It'll almost just like take hold itself. And then there's other times where it's like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to go into as deep as a trance as I can possibly be in, and whatever wants to show itself to me, whatever thought wants to present itself to me, I'm going to allow it, and just see, just be the observer. Like I'm not even this person or anything. Like I'm just the observer. I'm the awareness of this person, which is cool because actually last night, strangely enough, I feel like I always talk about like what I thought about last night whenever I was baked in my bed. But this was another experience where last night I was laying in my bed super baked, right? And which is where a lot of my brainstorming happens, like for the next day. Like normally I'll brainstorm and then I take something from that and that'll apply to the next.
Think about it all day, right?
Yeah, the next episode or a direction of an episode that I want to go to or whatever. And I actually recorded myself on voice memos because I didn't have the energy to write it down.
Hey, at least you did that, man. Good shit.
Yeah. And I want to try and see if it'll pick up on the mic. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I recorded it at 3:00 in the morning on the dot, and it was 1 minute and 11 seconds.
Of course. All right.
So let me know if you can hear this. Oh, hold on. Let me turn it all the way up real quick. Here we go.
Mind.
Oh.
We are,
Here we go.
dude, we are the higher mind. We are not the body. We're just aware of it and can influence it. But if you look at yourself from the higher mind, then the body itself is not just a body anymore. It's someone that you can adore because you know that you're looking after it. Like you're looking not even after the body, like I don't even say it, you're looking after the person. So it allows you to even admire yourself because you want to love and nourish and do all the good things for yourself, you know, good mental health and good love life and good work ethic and maintaining things that you know that your person needs. That's a good way of saying it. It's your person. Wow, that's pretty neat. So yeah, just be of a higher mind and love and nurture your person.
Yeah, that's it. And so that's what I was like, holy shit, that's so crazy because, you know, we look at our kids and we want to care for them and protect them. And we always want to look out for their best interests and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But if we just turned that around and looked at ourselves as if like we are the higher mind and look at your person, your you, right? Not as if it's you, but it's a person that you're looking out for kind of thing. Now it's like, you know, it gets you out of that selfish kind of mindset. And now you only want what's best for this person. So you're not going to be talking shit about that person. You're not going to be, you know, doing all of the negative things or putting your person in any kind of bad, whatever kind of experience, right? Like you always just want the best for your person. And I thought about that and I was like, holy fuck, that's the secret. I got it figured out. Wow. And then
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, you could even hear whenever I was like, wow, that's the best way to put it, your person. That's how you know you're baked whenever you like blow your own mind.
Right, dude. No, I love it, dude. I might have to start smoking weed again. I don't know. Because I miss those times, you know, because just having those profound thoughts that, you know, and who knows if it's any good the next day. But no, I feel like that was really good because it's really hard for people to, or for myself anyways, to look at myself in the best way possible. You know what I mean? We're always shit talking ourselves, you know, and for whatever reason, that's the default. And I don't understand. Maybe it's a survival type of thing. I'm not too sure. But when you look at yourself, imagine you are standing in front of, that's weird. Kind of like how Adam was talking about his future self, you know, approaching him, and imagine you looking at yourself and you know what that person, which is you, has been through, you know, you and have empathy and love for that person, and even give yourself like a hug. You know what I mean? Like it's just so much easier, it seems like, for whatever reason to shit talk yourself or to feel less than. But if you were looking at yourself from outside of yourself, it's a different ball game.
Yeah, dude. So, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. And so, I don't know. Maybe you can apply it. Maybe I'm just crazy. Who knows? But
I love that you recorded it, though.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. I'll try and make a wow. Like Owen Wilson. Wow.
Right. Wow.
But yeah, that was fun. Anyway, look, that was a awesome conversation with Adam Butler as it always is. And can't wait to do it again. But yeah, I guess until next time, we will see y'all on the flip side.
Bye, guys.
Voices drift on winds untamed, words like spells that can't be named. Close your eyes.